This whole time, this man is screaming right now. And again, I put it right here. Michigan is sitting awkwardly in the corner as they lost to TCU to let the Frogs in the national championship game. Remember that, remember that, remember that, okay? This fan right here is mad at this. He needs to go to Ann Arbor and yell at everybody. What is up, everybody? It is Jake with Master Football, back at it again. Happy Monday. Thank you so much for being here. If you want to be up to date on all things college football, pro football, Madden, EA college football, anything related to American football, hit that red subscribe button. It will not cost you anything. All it's going to cost you is being up to date on all those things. Also hit the like button. Really appreciate that. Without further ado, let's get into the video. All right, guys, here we are. And I know we are a couple days, weeks past the national championship at this point here. So cooler heads will prevail. We're able to talk about it more accurately, less emotionally, things like that. Because, first of all, I'll let you guys know. Last week, I just got back from Vegas. I got sick. I lost all my money. I had a time of my life. Didn't post for the entire week. Now we're getting going. Okay, we're moving on here. NFL playoffs is coming up, and I have a couple of videos about that. I also am really interested in talking about the NFL draft because there's a lot of cool things, connection between college to pro, lots of stuff I want to talk about there. However, this video is a defense of TCU. Now, not a defense of TCU and how they did the national championship, a defense of TCU being there and the situation that we had, because I'm telling you right now, the expansion of the playoff, a lot of people are like, oh, we're going to see just more games like that. Potentially, but I think that there's more benefits than there are drawbacks of having an expanded college football national championship run. And I'm here to defend TCU and what they did in this season. Let's get into that. So it is very, very difficult to defend a 58-point loss. And I mean, you saw me, look, the box score here was absolutely incredible. 17-7, and at least at one point it was close. But then Georgia made some adjustments, and then 21 in the second quarter, 14 in the third quarter, 13 in the fourth quarter. Absolutely just poured it on. Stetson Bennett basically did whatever you want. 18 for 25, 304, 4 touchdowns, three carries, 39 yards, 2 touchdowns, long of 21. You come over here to TCU, and Max Duggan, who was the backup at the beginning of the season, then came in because of Chandler Morris' injury. Then he went to the point where he was a Heisman Trophy finalist. 14 for 22, 150, 2 picks, 49 QBR. QBR is out of 50, meaning he actually played decent for how he did, but it was just not what you wanted to do. You could definitely tell that even if you were to make all the plays he needed to make, it just wasn't the way you wanted it to be. I mean, Carson Beck came in 99.9. They absolutely outplayed on the Georgia side. They just basically did whatever they wanted. 5.8 yards per carry on 44 carries. There's just no way. 44 carries. There's no way you can handle that much of an onslaught. 28 carries for 36 yards. Amari DiMarcano, 4.2 yards per carry. Imani Bailey, 4.5. But you see 10 carries for, and most of those are sacks, probably for Max Duggan, negative 38 yards and 1 touchdown. So not what you wanted. At one point, like I said, down 10, they had a possibility there, but second quarter and second half adjustments just were there for Georgia. They just absolutely did it. And after the game, even TCU was like, yeah, you know, we're just not there yet, man. Here we are on ESPN.com. TCU acknowledges Georgia's higher tier after the bowl loss by Paulo Uggetti. And he comes down here, and you see Chandler Morris, backup quarterback. This is kind of a weird situation. You don't really want your backup quarterback to be talking, although Chandler did win the job at the beginning of the season. Max eventually was playing so well they didn't want to get rid of him out there in the game. So, Chandler Morris, backup quarterback. We want to be on that tier where Alabama and Georgia are on. We're going to get a little away. We're going to get away from it a little bit, but we're going to use this as confidence. Unlike quarterback Max Duggan, who struggled to face ferocious Georgia defense and sacked 5 times, Morris will return next season to be in competition for the starting quarterback job. Remember here, Duggan's going to the NFL. Duggan was like, I'm not even going to play. Who cares? Blah, blah, blah. Anyways, he is going to be coming back, Chandler Morris. But you could definitely tell that, I mean, the players on the team, I mean, Jared Wiley, the tight end down here, we just didn't play our style. They had us on our heels. Absolutely, 58-point loss. No other way to put it. So, again, you see that 58-point loss outplayed on offense, defense, special teams, quarterback, running back. There was not one area where you're like, TCU looks better. There's 0 spots that you could say that. And again, I want to go over a tweet because this tweet had, it was a tweet connected to a TikTok, but it was just, I don't like, there's a lot of sayings in here that I'm going to address right now because I don't like the perspective out there. It was an unchallenged perspective because of the heightened emotional state of the national championship game. I didn't think that people were willing to push back on this. I want to address that tweet really quickly here because it has a lot of Dumb narratives, if I wanted to put it that way. So there's this man here from Barstool Sports here. He says, oh, he kind of spitting though. No, he wasn't. He was not spitting. Okay, this came out on the national championship day, and I tweeted out it was just, this is a very, very stupid perspective. We're going to explain why. So let's listen to a couple of the things that this rather passionate fan had to say.
You thought TCU belonged in this game?
Yes, they did. They were the number 4 seed. They were 12-1. They lost their conference championship game in overtime. They were undefeated in the regular season. That's something Alabama couldn't say. That's something Ohio State couldn't say. So yes, that is 100% correct. And then they got into the national championship playoff, and then they beat Michigan, a team that was higher seeded than them, to get to the national championship game. They were a lower ranked seed. They won, when you would consider that an upset, get to the national championship game, and then ultimately lay an egg. But yes, they belong in that game. Let's continue to hear what this rather passionate and very level-headed fan has to say.
What was the qualifications, College Football Playoff Committee? What was their qualifications?
They went 12-0, and then they lost in an overtime game in the conference championship game, and then they beat Michigan to get to the national championship game.
Getting beat by Kansas State.
They also beat them earlier.
That qualifies you for this game, the biggest game of the year, the game that every college football fan, no matter what team they pull for.
Actually, that's not true, because this was actually one of the lowest watched national championship games in history.
Looked forward to.
No, that's actually not true.
And this is the garbage that you gave us.
This whole time, this man is screaming right now. And again, I put it right here. Michigan is sitting awkwardly in the corner as they lost to TCU to let the Frogs in the national championship game. Remember that, okay? This fan right here is mad at this. He needs to go to Ann Arbor and yell at everybody. Although Jim Harbaugh might not be there because he might be the head coach of the Denver Broncos, but that's a story for another day. I think a better comparison is this. So as you get to a championship model, you get into a bracket model. There's going to be more and more games. So the NCAA tournament in NCAA basketball, there are NCAA basketball, the 2022-2023 season, there's 352 NCAA D1 teams, and then there's 131 as of this year, FBS football teams. So with that, that's about 2.68, basketball teams for every one football team. We're going to say about 3, meaning that there's about 3 times as many college basketball teams as there's college football teams. So if you take that from the bracket, Georgia was the 1 seed, TCU was the 4 seed. TCU was the 3 seed in this instance. So Ohio State was the 4 seed. TCU was the 3 seed, and then they beat the 2 seed, which was Michigan, to get to the national championship game. So 3 times 3, roughly 3 times 3 is 9. So instead of it being the number 1 versus the number 3 team in college football, it would have been equivalent to like the number 1 team versus the number 9 team in college basketball. And we see here that in NCAA March Madness, in a tournament, sometimes there's just blowouts, man. A couple of these early blowouts that we don't want to take care of these. At Connecticut and Chattanooga, that's not important. Kansas and Prairie View, that's not important. UNLV and Duke, a 40-point loss by Duke in the national championship game. Number 1 versus number 3. Listen, this just happens here, okay? 40-point loss. Sometimes you just don't have it. TCU didn't have it against Georgia. Georgia's very, very talented. TCU deserved to be there, just didn't put up what they wanted to do. Again, we see blowouts in college basketball. We're going to see this more often. There's going to be close games, there's going to be upsets, and there's going to be blowouts. The bigger the tournament is, the more they happen. There's a reason why they call it March Madness. It's because when there's a 64, now 68, they want to get it to 120. When there's the more teams, there's more opportunities to lose. This is naturally going to happen. And again, I'm telling you right now, the only team you have deserved to be mad at for the result that you saw was the Michigan Wolverines, because they're the reason why TCU was there. Come down here and see this. This was a Final Four team right here. Villanova versus Oklahoma, 2016, as early as that Final Four matchup. It was a 44-point blowout victory. So I'm telling you, I know that technically in football it's more, although football, the scoring, I mean, it's not an apples to apples comparison, just because it's harder to shut people out in basketball than it is in football. But you know what I'm trying to say. I'm basically saying here, the bigger the tournament is going to get, and again, we used to have 2, now we have 4. We're going to go to 12, might even go to 16. You never know. We're going to see more of that. We're going to see more upsets like TCU beating Michigan, and we're also going to see more blowouts like Georgia beating TCU. Now, with that, I also want to talk about a couple other things here, because remember here, okay, very, very important. You remember how I mentioned Chandler Morris before? Chandler Morris was a freshman coming in. He was going to start for Sonny Dykes. He gets injured. Ultimately, Max Duggan comes in, and the rest is history. They have a bunch of close victories, get to the national championship game, beat beat Michigan in an absolute shootout, and then they get blown out in the national championship game. But TCU, it's looking good. Do I think they're going to automatically, replicate what they did last season? No, that was absolutely magical. But I do know they've got a couple things to look forward to. One of them being Chandler Morris. Chandler Morris, and again, 6 foot, 195, good arm. Going to come in here, and again, he doesn't have the stats that you necessarily wanted to see him have, but he is going to be that guy. He's going to be the starter eventually down the road. I'm telling you right here, just everyone have patience. The guy who went to the Heisman Trophy celebration and took the team to the national title race was the backup to this guy at the beginning of the season. So there's a lot of things looking up, and especially if you look at recruiting too. Now, Dan, let's just make sure we're clear. You come up here at the top and you see Alabama, Georgia, 1-2. What do you know? Texas, this is surprising. I like me some Miami. My brother's a big Miami fan. You come down here and you see this. This is the good sight to see for TCU fans. So TCU's at 19 right now. And again, 10 4-stars. You saw Georgia had 24 stars. But you see this, you're ahead of the likes of Florida State, Arkansas, Utah, Michigan State, Washington. I mean, we see Ole Miss is down here, UCLA. These were both top 10 teams at one point. So there's a lot to look forward to out there in Fort Worth. TCU, I'm telling you, a lot of good things to look forward to. In fact, when we get into this, we open this up and see what they have here. There's a lot to look forward to. And again, this is the thing about, I heard Colin Cowherd say this, it was a pretty correct opinion. You can be a bad coach on a Southern team, and you can still be a good team. Ed Orgeron won a national championship at TCU or LSU, and he was out a couple years later because there's just so much talent on that team. Northern teams, it's hard to attract talent to get up there to play, so you have to have good coaches. The Big Ten, if you don't pay for a good head coach, it's not going to happen for you. But you see this, look at this, Texas, 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 Tennessee, Texas, 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 Louisiana, Texas, Texas. What I'm trying to say here, California, okay, good for you, Cooper Powers. What I'm trying to say here, though, is that TCU, recruiting well, doing a good job out there. You also see, again, this is another factor to consider here. Trey Sanders in high school was a 5-star. Tommy Brockmeyer, high school, was a 5-star. They are transferring over to TCU to try to play right away. They've got immediate availability. TCU is a good spot, getting the quarterback they thought was going to start back this next season, getting some 5-stars, getting a lot of 4-stars, recruiting well. I'm telling you right now, a lot of people, again, national championship was upsetting. We got a little on our feels, okay? TCU deserved to be there. Everybody knows that. And who disagrees with that is just being emotional like that one guy who was just yelling there. But, again, bigger, expanded playoff. We're going to see more blowouts. We're going to see more upsets. TCU was an example of both this season. All right, and again, I know that I'm G5. I want to be, I want my team up there into the, the higher ranks out there. But so I'm more complimentary, more understanding of the Big 12 versus the SEC, the Pac-12 versus the SEC, Big 10 versus the SEC. But again, get in the comments right now. Let me know what you guys think. Am I being unfair by saying that, no, two things can be true at the same time? LSU or TCU deserve to be there. They also are not on the tier of Georgia. Or am I just wrong? Is that guy who is yelling correct? Get in the comments right now and let me know. All right, guys, that's it. Thank you so much for being here. Remember, like, share, comment, subscribe. Do all that stuff. I really appreciate it. Helps out the channel a lot. Quest for 1,000. We're almost there. I'll see you guys later. I am out.